To That Bible Guy and your devotional series on the book of Joshua. What do you like at trusting in God generally, but when you don't fully understand everything? What do we like at trusting in God? Today we're going to see in Joshua 5 and 6 what God expected of Joshua and the people, the Israelites, when he gave instructions about how to take Jericho. Joshua 5 and 6, we'll see that what's happened is God's covenant of circumcision was renewed in Joshua chapter 5. And then in 6, we go on to a really famous story and a famous event that happened that people outside of Christianity have heard about. The time whenever Joshua and the Israelites went in, marched around the city of Jericho, and then the walls fell. And again, one of them incredible, miraculous stories that, again, some people view with skepticism today. But we know the details of this story. I think I'll talk about evidences for it in another video at another point. But the details of this story are the Israelites have just went in. They're about to go into the promised land. They've crossed the Jordan River. And this is one of the hardest cities that they were going to have to try and take, was the city of Jericho. And it said in verse 3, in terms of God's instructions to Joshua and the people, he said, march around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound the long blast in the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the army will go up and everyone straight in. This is God's instructions. We're going to go and take the city. But hold on a minute. There's no army in front of us. There's no military going in. There's no weapons being discussed here. Your plan is that we're to march around the city and then blow trumpets? Hold on a minute. Is that our plan? You can just hear the people asking Joshua. Moses has died now. Joshua's in charge. Is this Joshua guy got a connection with God the way Moses did? Are we really going to march around and then the walls just fall when they blow the trumpets? And you can imagine the reaction when you're told, here's what you need to do to be victorious. And that plan makes no logical sense. That makes no sense to you and me. How can God expect that to give us courage to go in and take the city? But God was given instructions that he expected the people to follow in faith. And if they followed them instructions, which they did, they would have victory. I love the way God does this. I don't always feel like I love it. God gives instructions that we don't always fully understand, to see if we will be faithful enough to follow his plan rather than our own plan. I love the story of Abraham. In Hebrews chapter 11, in verse 8, it's one of the scriptures I've always referred to when you think about Abraham as another man of faith. And it said, by faith, when Abraham was called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went. He obeyed and went. And it says, even though he did not know where he was going. The question is, are we ready to obey God when we don't have full understanding? Does it have to make sense to us first? I'm a very logical person. I've became this way as the years have went by. And I rationalize and I analyze just about everything. I line everything up, and it's just the way my weird mind works. But the question for me, and I ask myself when I see this, if God asks me to do something that doesn't seem to make sense, will I do it? Will I follow God's plan, or do I need to understand it before I'll follow it? Abraham did not know where he was going, but he obeyed and went because God said so. Joshua and his people could not have understood how on earth what they were doing was going to make any difference, but they had to trust God's plan, and they obeyed without full understanding. I honestly believe that to follow God, we acknowledge who he is, we acknowledge who we are. With that acknowledgement, we acknowledge his ways are higher than our ways. His ways are better than our ways. His ways are perfect. I remember this myself. I remember when I was studying the Bible for the first time, questioning Christianity, questioning what was true. I remember I had a pull towards the world and drinking culture and girlfriends and all these things I enjoyed, but I knew didn't make me happy. Enjoyed for a short periods of time. And I was asked about, it's better if you move out of this house full of girls and so on and into this house, this flat. Seemed like a sensible suggestion, but my heart was being pulled. And I remember being asked to make decisions that were godly decisions, definitely were godly decisions to move and follow, but it didn't make sense. There's a part of me going, I don't know if that's going to work out for me. I don't know if that's going to be the best choice. Am I going to miss out on something really special that was lying in wait for me if I hadn't followed what I knew was God's plan? And I wanted to turn my back several times, but I knew in my heart, if I follow God's plan here and put myself in God's hands, I don't fully understand it. I don't fully get why he's asking me to do it this way, why I can't do it the other way, but I've got to just trust in him. And again, I've had times in the past when I didn't fully trust in God and didn't follow what I thought he was asking me to do. But on that occasion, I look back as one of them moments where I just thought, right, I'm going to do this in faith. I'm going to move out of the house I'm in and move into this flat with these other guys who are Christians and they live that way. I'm going to move in with them. I don't fully understand everything, but I honestly believe God is asking me to do this. What is God asking us to do? How are we doing it obeying without having the full understanding the way we would want it to be? God is looking out, and he wants to look for the person who will follow and obey him even when they don't fully understand. Abraham believed his wife could get pregnant even though she was past childbearing age because he knew that God could do that. I love the scripture. It says Jesus will look around at the earth and says, will he find faith on the earth? It talks about persistent prayer. Will he find faith on the earth? God is looking for faith. Faith supersedes the ability to understand everything. Will we obey and follow even when we don't have full understanding? So that's today's little devotional in Joshua 5 and 6 is obedience without full understanding. I'm sure we can apply this to many areas of our life and we can look and say, how are we doing in that area? Because that is what God's looking for. It's obedience which comes from faith and it comes from experiences of seeing God come through. It's very helpful, like my experience of moving out. Remember a time like that when you obeyed but you didn't have a full understanding, and think of the outcome to that. Just drop me any thoughts on that. Please like this video, share, subscribe to That Bible Guy. As always, if you want to support this ministry, check the link out on Patreon. Big teaching event coming up this weekend on Zoom. If you want to check that out on www.londonicoc.org/Joshua. First 500 can view this. It's a teaching day on Joshua. We're going to look at the introduction to Joshua, Mike Fontenot. Joshua is a type of Jesus, Ed Anton, and then myself, a parallel between Joshua and Acts. First 500 people. Date is from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Join us if you can this Saturday, and you can let me know how you get on with that. Drop me any thoughts you have on this, and let's get his word out there.